Okay, so this is taking over, talking about Yalom, and this is taken from Yalom's textbook, which I liked better with this outline. So Yalom discussed why a group is effective and the therapeutic factors. According to Yalom, the number one therapeutic factor from group is the installation of hope. Hope is flexible, adaptable, and really, you as group leader, you should be drawing from a wellspring of hope. And so if you are depressed and in a bad spot yourself as group leader, it's time to maybe check out and get yourself in good shape. Hope is also a primary determinant of resiliency in people who have been through trauma. There is an author by the name of Chan Hellman. He's a graduate of Northwestern Oklahoma State University and currently teaches at the University of Oklahoma and has a book out on resilience from child trauma. I spoke about this before early on, just in the beginning stages of our class. But there's this aspect in group that you cannot create individually, this universal human experience, universality, the experience that I'm not alone. It gets people more in touch with other people. In a way, misery loves company, but if you can listen to somebody else that's also been through some rough times, it's like, I'm not alone in this. This universality allows you to explore ambivalence. A lot of people feel many different ways simultaneously about an issue, particularly in abuse survivor situations. There's a lot of times this irrational survivor's guilt that whether it be in trauma with combat, whether it be trauma in an abusive situation, there's this survivalist guilt that can emerge where a person takes too much responsibility for their own suffering or the suffering of others. It's like, I should have done something. And so that can be done more effective through other survivors. You as a counselor, so if you remember anything from this lecture as far as what I've experienced as a counselor and what I've been taught, what I've learned, remember this. If a person who has been through a traumatic experience does not express guilt for their surviving the experience, do not project what comes from others, because that is a common theme that emerges, that sometimes there's survivor's guilt. A lot of people who've been through trauma experience that. Do not project that into your client. And so while there's this experience of universality that can come with groups, if that comes out among members, or maybe there's some members who don't feel ambivalent about the situation, or whatever it is. It could be maybe they're dealing with depression, person takes too much responsibility for depression, or anxiety, or whatever the case may be. It's important that these aspects come from other people and not you as the counselor, because you are there to help this person make sense of their own experience and not to project what you believe. If you believe something with a person in an individual basis, you better damn well sure have good evidence before you explore this with that person. Example of an elderly man, this is from page 8, wife suicide, catharsis and ultimate acceptance. So maybe even accepting ambivalence, maybe accepting, I'm always going to feel torn about this. There's a place where groups can impart information, education majors, didactic instruction. I ran a lot of these psychoeducational groups. There's also direct advice. Remember, you're not supposed to do that as a counselor, but as folks that live through similar experiences, if they want to give direct advice, okay, that's fine. There's also this theme, according to Yalom, that emerges of altruism. Group therapy allows individuals to help others, to feel useful. And so even though they may not be counselors, they can take this layperson role and come to group and express their own experience or what has been helpful to them, and it may or may not be helpful to others. But if you experience this altruism, this can give life meaning. It can also correct what has emerged as a horrible family dynamic. Yalom really pointed to a place where people re-experience relationships in a group that have been dysfunctional for them throughout their lives. And so hopefully when you get to a working stage in your group and folks are at healthy psychological levels, you can help navigate that as the group leader and help facilitate this healthy, open-ended, altruistic discussion, again, this basic human empathy between members that is not present in a lot of families. Other people can develop, relatedly, people can develop new socialization techniques. If folks are, back to Rogers, if folks experience empathy from others, they can actually experience a personality shift or change and resolve some things. Imitative behavior, model therapists model behavior, and so you can model appropriate behavior, these empathy type of, open-ended questions, affirmations. There's interpersonal learning that occurs, particularly here in Northwest Oklahoma, where we're so isolated, where we have these little pockets of culture. Group allows a new culture to emerge, where if we live in this patriarchal, very rugged, individualistic type of culture that embraces a machoistic, maybe even misogynistic view of, women are subservient, males are dominant, this and that. A re-experiencing of an egalitarian relationship, an equal footing in a group where people communicate differently and have different views. Even though there's this universality that you look for, you also have interpersonal learning that happens. And so there's a lot that goes into this. And you're welcome to take a look through all of these. Corrective emotional experience. Honest feedback from others. Sometimes folks can be brutally honest in their feedback, where you're, as a counselor, may be a bit more couched in how you present information to other people. That can be more, especially somebody who's addicted. Somebody can just say, well, you're full of shit. Whereas I'm going to really strongly refrain from having you say that as a counselor. Again, social microcosm, you're welcome to look through that. Yalom even talks about transference. People bringing in, I think that goes back to family dynamics, people bringing in what they've already experienced as in their lives and accept it as normal. They transfer that in the group, and it flushes itself out as this is either adaptive or maladaptive in this social setting. So there's other things that happen in a group that you just cannot duplicate in that individual face-to-face setting. Group cohesiveness is absolutely necessary. I do not, for a true counseling therapy group, I do not see true meaningful benefit without a safe, cohesive relationship between members. And so each individual has to feel safe. Now, obviously, people are going to be at different levels of this. Some may be really bought into the group. Some may be, I'm kind of checked out. I'm just kind of here because somebody told me to be here. And so that's okay. You can have varying levels, but as long as that person that's a little bit checked out is non-judgmental, is at least accepting of the other people, there can be this cohesion and healing that happens. But thing about group cohesiveness, Yalom talks about belongingness, human belongingness, being, even though you may be a loner or somebody who thrives on maybe introversion, you do better alone. You're still human, and you still have to be a member of the human race. And it's important that people are amongst a group. And so again, even if a person is a really shy individual, I've seen really shy individuals open up in a group counseling setting because they feel safe and secure and accepted. Now, they may not be the most talkative member throughout, but they are going to at some point open up. And so you're welcome to look through here the mechanisms of action. Yalom really points to catharsis. This in catharsis being this, to me, this insight that you derive from this experience of group, and now you see the world in a different frame because you've sat and you've experienced, like we have in our group counseling, the first and second sessions. You've learned through your experience. You are a different person today than you were back the first week of June because you've had these group leading experiences and you're a part of this group. You will be a little bit different after your third. And so there's this, when we experience something, there is nothing more. I mean, yeah, I can read a book and I can do this, but if I experience something, I'm alive, I'm breathing the same air as other people, which is, Zoom did its, best to carry people through the pandemic. But when we're alive and we're experiencing things as a group together, people change. I've seen people, actually, I'll kind of back up to introversion and extroversion. I've seen people that were introverted who get put into a position of leadership, change their personality and come out differently, come out more outspoken, come out more assertive, come out more extroverted than they were when they went in. And so there can be some very powerful things that happen in this cathartic experience where you kind of have this shift. A catharsis is really a shift in perspective. There are also existential factors that are important for group and change. It is important. People, there is no escape from pain or death. Life is unfair and unjust at times. And no matter how much I may connect with others, I still have to go out of this group and I have to face life alone. And in the end, I'm responsible for my own life. Those are some things that come out of group. And so there's some factors that can change. I think this is really important. This is important for you to recognize. Things can fluctuate and change throughout the process. You may be in a working stage and performing well, and then something happens and there's conflict and it's a step back. These things can fluctuate too. It's not just a steady progression through the stages of group. And so level of cognition, insight, level of emotion that is expressed in groups. Sometimes people are just worn out and they can't express any more emotions. So there are some things that can influence how clients like or dislike these therapeutic factors: length of time in treatment, level of functioning, what type of group they have, what age they have, and also the diagnosis of people. These are important things to consider. I keep having a call, so I have to check out. I will see you in the next video.